So let me introduce John Stapleton. So John, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
As a very successful businessman, why Vi for you?
You know, Tricia, that's such a broad question. There's such a multitude of reasons why Vi is the right thing for me right now. And let me explain that by just basically going back a step, back to my childhood, really. Explain a little bit about my background, why it's relevant to me now. I grew up in the west of Ireland on a farm, and nothing unusual about that, maybe, but you know, what it did mean was that I was surrounded by food and the sources of food everywhere I went. So food for me comes from the ground, comes from animals, and that's very obvious, I think, but a lot of people don't realize that. So for me, from an early age, food came from nature, as opposed to the fridge or the shelf or the supermarket trolley, as a lot of people think today. So that was one obvious element in where I was going to then spend the rest of my life. Secondly, I spent a lot of time doing track and field athletics when I was a youngster in both school and at university, and I reached quite a high level.
You were in fact national in Ireland.
Well, I represented Ireland quite a few times, yeah, and I got very heady days. It was great for my self-confidence and discipline, and I had a fantastic time, and I was rubbing shoulders with people like Carl Lewis and Daley Thompson and people like that way back in the 80s, who were my idols and my heroes. But I got very interested in foodstuffs, and I'm very interested in nutrition and the relationship between nutrition and performance of elite athletes and wellness and all these things which are really trendy today. But actually back then, you know, it was a little bit weird to be interested in these sort of things. But what I did think was, wouldn't it be cool, wouldn't it be great if I can combine my hobby in essence with a career, yeah? Sort of work through that and do something that I really enjoyed and had a great aptitude for. And I could see the relationships with normal people. So I did. I went to university in the UK and studied food science. But I was very clear I didn't want to be a scientist in the food industry. I didn't want to wear a white coat. Food, like I said, was very nature orientated for me. So the first thing I did when I left that university was I met up with a guy called Andrew, and we formed a company called New Covent Garden Soup Company. A lot of people know that today as the pioneering brand behind fresh soup in the UK and Ireland.
Every supermarket you turn.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, going back to 1987 when we did this, fresh soup didn't exist, so we pioneered the whole thing. But the point about it was, what we were trying to do was make a natural soup product available to the mass market. So, you know, novel approach, have the soup actually taste of the ingredients that you actually used in it in the first place, as opposed to a canned version, which was over-processed and you had to put flavor back into it in a scientific way, in an unnatural, in a processed way. So that was the first example for me. I spent 10 years growing that business, was very successful, sold it, went to the States, came back, did something else. And the second, or the third company that I set up, if you like, called Little Dish, is in a similar space. What we did at Little Dish was we make healthy meals for kids, right? So it's all about, again, taking the best quality ingredients you can, putting it into a meal and providing it in a convenient format to the mother to serve to their kid. And when I say kid, I mean not baby, 12 months upwards, yeah? So our value proposition at Little Dish was all about making kids' lives healthier and making moms' lives easier. So you've got healthy, nutritious, tastes good and is convenient. Now, if you roll that on a couple of years, that was back in 2005 when we set that business up, it's such a logical next step for me to become involved in Vi, because guess what? Vi is all about that. It's all about healthy, nutritious, convenient food, yeah? Providing it in a slightly different format to maybe what I've done in the past, but it's the same target audience, the same aspiration that we're trying to achieve. But of course, Vi is so much more than the product. It's all about a transformational movement. It's all about providing a lifestyle opportunity for people to move from a very unhealthy position to a much more healthy position. And that's a very altruistic approach to take, and it's really motivational to see how people respond and react to that, having eventually found out what it's all about, having eventually gotten the insights into what foodstuffs are good for you and what foodstuffs are bad for you and what your diet should look like. And we work very closely, you know, with sports personalities and sports professionals, and that brings the movement into it. That's where I come from too. I come from a sports background, so I'm very much at home with all of that. And then you see the results. And basically the other element is that it is sustainable. This is really important for me, is that it's not just a flash in the pan by any means. The whole process of the challenge groups and bringing people together, the buddy system and the reinforcement of the message and monitoring and making sure that you're sticking to your goals and achieving them every week on an ongoing basis is great, because it means it's sustainable. And it means that people can reach their overall goals, small steps leading to an ultimate much better position than you've ever been in before. And of course the other thing is I have my own challenge as well. I'm on a challenge. I take the product, because for me it's a very busy lifestyle. We all have busy lifestyles, and I travel all over the place. because I live in Munich and I work in London and I'm back and forth so often. It's so difficult to have a healthy diet as you're on the move all the time. You're in trains and bus stations and train stations and airports, and the quality of the products you have to rely on to grab and go and sustain yourself throughout the day. And I need to eat all the time, as you know. It's impossible to keep a healthy diet. And Vi, with the new products especially, and the snacks and the products that are so convenient to allow you to interject throughout the day with different healthy, convenient, tasty options, is second to none. So all those reasons, and I could probably come up with more, but they're the ones I can think of, as why Vi for me is perfect in terms of its aspiration and timing for me, spot on.
Amazing. Well, a lot of people would look at you and think you are a very successful businessman to have achieved that level of result in business, but there's a cost, and I do know that there is always a cost. It isn't as glamorous as it seems, and I think there's a huge thing about cost of lifestyle to you that now you're looking forward to with this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. You're quite right. You touched on a very relevant point, and it's very. I mean, all those points I mentioned were quite relevant for quite some time to me, but now having spent a lot of time setting up businesses. We did New Common Garden Soup Company. I spent through all my effort into that. I went to the States, did all of that. Live in Munich, set up a business in London. Not terribly logical, but did all that. I really wanted to find a way to have a much more balanced lifestyle, in that I was spending more time where I live, working, as opposed to all my time in a different country working. So with this opportunity, as you know, we've been working closely on trying to develop the opportunity in the UK and Ireland, which is great, but I can also do this in Germany and in Austria, because the opportunity there is just as much relevant and topical as it is in the English-speaking world. So I'm looking at having living in Munich, working very closely with the team, building a team in Munich, working with the guys in Austria, building a team there, and the Vi office is based, head office for the German-speaking world is based in Munich, so that's really convenient for me. So I'm looking to be able to have a more balanced lifestyle, purely from the point of view of being able to work where I live more often than I've ever been able to do in the last 10 years.
Well, you and I speak to a lot of business people all across Europe, and one of the things that they continually say is the travesty of lack of time, is that it all, at one level, seems successful, but they don't have enough time. And I know you're an avid skier, and that's the whole thing, is to be able to live your life just on your terms completely. But that is something that, if you looked at the world out there, I know you and I would be attracted, because it's just starting a world of entrepreneurs across Europe. So the message is that it doesn't life can be transitioned. You can change into a more balanced life.
You absolutely can. I think you can be the master of your own destiny. You can write your own book, like we were talking about the other day. You really can take control and make choices which allow you to make further choices within your terms of reference. The other thing is, of course, having set up businesses in the past, pretty much always in the food industry, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always had that approach. So I've never worked in a big corporate where I've had to have a boss to report to, or have to have done things that maybe I mightn't have agreed with. There's pros and cons of entrepreneurialism, of course, don't get me wrong. But one of the major benefits is that if you're not averse to risk, and you have an idea and you think you're going to be successful at it, you can just go for it. You can use resources from so many different locations. And with the Vi mentality and the Vi approach, that is all about teamwork. It's all about playing to people's strengths. And it's so you can paint your own canvas and do pretty much what you want within the objectives of this transformational movement that I talked about earlier. So it gives you lots of freedom in terms of this approach, as far as I'm concerned, and that fits very much with my lifestyle, what I've been used to the last 25 years, but even more so than before, because the location isn't so important. We can communicate with people these days through modern technology in different countries, and I can be there for a few days, but I don't have to be there 5-6 days a week like I had to in the past when I was setting up my own business, which was all about a factory and sales and traditional retail-based businesses. These days, the Vi opportunity for me allows me even more freedom than I'm used to having, which is great.
I found it very interesting how we met, because you got introduced by a lovely lady in London who didn't really tell you anything about it, and yet you found yourself in front of me, and of course we got to know more. But even when we spoke earlier, I know that you were looking to fit this in with a lot of other projects, but there's something about, I think, over the last number of months where you've looked at the whole potential of this, and I see that you've putting more aside to take the full advantage of the sheer potential globally. With
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's no question. It was never a point of I'll give it a go and see how it turns out. For me, I was pretty much hooked in on the objectives and the opportunities early on. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much convinced me that there was not all of the detail that came with time, but convinced me that number one, this was a huge opportunity. In terms of being able to do something really constructive and positive and feel good about this thing that you're actually doing by bringing such an opportunity to so many people, providing them with the means to transform their own lives, and the emotional effect that has on them, not only on them, but on their family and loved ones, and it has a huge ripple effect. That's contagious. You can't pass that over very lightly, number one. And secondly, the business opportunity, of course, as well. You can actually turn this into your own business and develop it at your own pace. Yeah. So I got all that, absolutely. But the point for me was being able to free up as much time as I possibly could, having stepped back recently from my own business, Little Dish, and I've got a number of consultancy roles, and I help a number of people, and it wouldn't be at all appropriate or fair to me to go drop all that in mid-project or in mid-commitment. I think we need to, I need to carry through with all that. So I've managed over the last few months to do that, and now carve out more and more time. So I'm now kind of like probably, I'd say 55, 60, 65% able to commit that amount of time to Vi, and within the next few months it'll be even more. Yes. And my objective really is to do it as full time as I possibly can, and ideally all of my time.
So your vision, and we're going to go into the challenge group concept in a moment, but your vision altogether for this, what would you say in the next few years? How is this going to shape up? What are you going to see being achieved in your life through this?
I think sitting here today, and even sitting here a couple of months ago, the way to approach that answer is not put numbers on it, but just to say the sky is the limit, because it really is. Yeah, we've seen what happened in the last 10 years in North America, and that's phenomenal. I'm not sure if anybody at the beginning of that journey could have predicted where they'd be in 10 years. So I'm not going to try to do that, but I can say that the sky is the limit, and because of my physical location in Munich, then the opportunity. Timing is so ideal here because we're launching properly in Europe. Yeah, there's a huge amount. It's like having a startup business with 10 years of relevant experience. It's contradictory in terms, but that's what we've got here. Yeah, and all of the hugely relevant lessons and support systems and learnings and the guys in the States who've done all this in the past. 90%, in some cases 100% of it is so relevant to what we're doing here. We need to tweak it a little bit for local markets and local cultures. And that's really exciting because we're in at a point where we're just beginning to kick off various countries. And personally, I'm really keen to do the UK and Ireland and Germany and Austria, but why stop there? There are a whole bunch of other countries, Eastern Europe as well, that we can open up. And beyond that, why would you stop there as well? I think the Middle East and Asia and Australia, and all of the regions of the world where obesity is an epidemic and is a problem, and pretty much every nation is touched by that particular problem. So in terms of a need, the need is everywhere, and we just obviously need to be strategic about our approach, how we do one sequentially after the other. But the sky is the limit. Yes,
I mean you and I saw a company that had a phenomenal meteoric growth. They had 3 million people who had transformations, 3 million, and then they came to UK and Europe, but for you and I know, and the team, the thing that really turned it around with all of their innovations, all their technology breakthroughs, was the concept of the challenge group.
Right.
Because we know that this model and the way they remunerate within this model is absolutely set for the masses. It attracts every single type of person out there.
Yeah, that's right. First of all, it attracts every single person. So you could be a customer, you could be a promoter, you could be an influencer, and there are little levels in between all of that too, in terms of, because everybody's different. And again, like I said before, we've got a way here where we can really play absolutely to everybody's strengths. Yeah. And in addition to that, the whole concept of the challenge group, it's a win-win-win almost for everybody involved. Yeah, we work very closely with the sports guys. It really works for them. It works really well for the host of the challenge group. It clearly, obviously, works well for the customers because they've got their products supplemented by the information, and also they're being cheered on by their buddies and by their challengers, and we've got monitoring systems which keeps them on track and make sure they're achieving their goals one step at a time. And beyond that, it's a huge business operation for anybody who really sees the opportunity and has the time to put aside to it. The world is their oyster. They can put more and more time into it and see the benefits really, really early on. You know, it's not like a franchise where you got to invest a hell of a lot of money to start, and you don't have to build a factory. You don't have to bring in shareholders. You can just get going tomorrow, straight away, and chip away, and make a pretty significant impact in your first month. And that's really motivating as well. For people can then see, oh, you know, this could be an awful lot bigger if I could put more time aside to it.
Yes.
So it's not a big sell to say, come on board. It's like, this looks wonderful. What do you think? We want to do it. Yeah, well, let's get going. I'll support you. And they do it within the time availability that they've got. And very often they're jacking in their old job because this is far more exciting and far more rewarding.
Well, you know, normally opportunities are very limited within this direct sales industry where you have to sell a product. But what we're looking at doing is we're accommodating everybody within their gift zone. Like all the sports people can just do their sport. They don't have to be engaged in any other part of the promotion. They can just do that part of in the challenge group. So, and they can earn not just great cash flow every single month, but actually multiply the amount of clients coming to their classes and their personal training.
Exactly, and that motivates them to no end. And I think sometimes people like who are involved in the sports world, you know, they're approached by lots of different companies to sell products on their behalf, and they think, oh, it's another sale. This is not about selling product in the first place, so don't worry about that. You don't even have to do it, but if you were to do it, it would be about introducing a new lifestyle opportunity to people who really need it. Sometimes they know they need it and aren't motivated to do anything about it. Sometimes they don't even know they need it, and it's this awakening that the challenge host can bring to the group. And then once that the sports person sees that happening and sees the power of this happening, they're hooked and they want to do it as well because they want to be part of such a good thing.
Amazing. So this 12-week program where people come in, the catalyst for change, it's all going to make a big difference. You and I, we left Ireland all those years ago, all those decades ago, and we're about to now launch Vi in Ireland. Yeah. And I know we're both pretty passionate about that whole opportunity. It's a blank canvas over there that we can build in a country that is going to so embrace the challenge group concept.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a huge need in Ireland. I mean, I'm not sure how it happened in a space of 20 years or whatever, but, you know, I think it's 37% of the Irish population is obese, and further 25 is overweight. So that's like 60, almost 70% of the population has a problem with their weight. So there's a huge demand, and that hasn't happened overnight, obviously. But 20 years ago, those figures weren't so high. And the World Health Organization has said in 2020 it'll be Ireland will be the fattest nation in Europe. How did that happen? You know, so you know, something's got to be done about it. And I think Vi can arrest, if done properly, Vi can arrest this horrendous movement in the wrong direction. Slow it down, bring it to a stop, and reverse it. And that's where the demand comes from, and I think that's the power of this whole transformational movement that Vi is.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Not at all, you're very welcome. I'm delighted to be here. Yes, let's go! Yeah!
Don't look at Vi only as a business opportunity, but also as a personal development opportunity.
I will never give up, and you never give up. Precious! Thank you.